Max Blumenthal actually tweeted out something that supports what you're saying. He said Israel's 98th Division has withdrawn from Khan Yunis. Refugees are returning en masse to northern Gaza, where bakeries are reopening. Hamas still stands, and hostages have not been freed. Haaretz and the Wall Street Journal now assess that Israel has lost in Gaza or is on the brink of total defeat. And here is so it's just wild that Hamas, which was created by Israel, has defeated Israel. I guess that fits perfectly with their other tactics. So here's one headline he tweeted out saying what can't be said. Israel has been defeated, a total defeat. The war's almost aims won't be achieved. The hostages won't be returned through military pressure. Security won't be restored, and Israel's international ostracism won't end. Here's one more. We've lost. Truth must be told. The inability to admit it encapsulates everything you need to know about Israel's individual and mass psychology. There's a clear, sharp, predictable reality that we should begin to fathom, to process, to understand, and to draw conclusions from for the future. It's no fun to admit that we've lost, so we lie to ourselves. So, and here's one more. Israel wins battle, but risks war loss. Here's another one. Israel faces potential loss in war.
It's quicker than Ukraine.
So this seems, how do we go from a genocide to Israel losing?
Well, I mean, Israel is committing a genocide against the Palestinians, but I will tell you that, and this, I get in trouble sometimes saying this, but I'm very cynical, but this was part of the plan of Hamas all along. Everybody knew what Israel was going to do. Anybody who pretended that Israel wasn't going to come in and slaughter the Palestinian people if they haven't been studying what Israel's done in Gaza over the years. Hamas went in, defeated Israel, embarrassed Israel, then lured them into Gaza knowing that Israel would do exactly what they do, because they understood that there could never be a Palestinian state unless international public opinion turned on Israel. And the best way to get international public opinion to turn on Israel is to let Israel be Israel, to let Israel do what it's naturally inclined to do, which is slaughter civilians. So they did that. They committed this horrific genocide. And then Hamas didn't yield. Hamas didn't bend. Hamas will accept no temporary ceasefire. Hamas won't return the hostages. Israel kills more civilians, more civilians, more civilians. Public opinion turns. Hamas still exists. They still fight. They won't surrender. And the end result is that Israel lost. Israel lost.
Wow, that is what they call 4D chess, I guess. Right? I did not. I thought that Israel was going to. I thought they had gotten rid of the Palestinians in northern Gaza, and then they were going to try to find a place to get rid of the rest of them. I thought they were going to take it over and start putting up condos, and but that's well, not. I did.
Jared Kushner thought so too.
Yeah, I know. I saw that video. So I guess they should just team up with Zelensky and form Israel Ukraine and. And then with the winning streak they're on, go to Reno and play at the tables, because this is not this kind of stunning to all of a sudden like that. Iran is got this what do you call it, this defense supremacy? What is the word you use?
Deterrence
supremacy. Yeah. We're afraid to go to war with Iran. And all of a sudden, Hamas won this war because they wanted to win the psychological warfare with the world, and it won. It worked. Now everybody looks at it worked on me because I was not very informed about the Israel-Palestine conflict until October 7th, and then after that, I didn't know anything about the Balfour Declaration. I didn't know anything about the Nakba. I didn't know anything about.
On purpose, I didn't know.
I didn't. I guess I didn't know anything about anything. But now I know all these things. I didn't know what Zionism really was. I didn't know that Zionists weren't. I didn't know that the most religious Jews are against the state of Israel. Right. I didn't know all of that stuff. And now I do know all this stuff, and it happened because they started to commit a genocide in Palestine. And so that would you consider that? I mean, they had to sacrifice 30 to 40,000 of their own people to win this battle. I mean, this war, Hamas. Would you consider that successful or psychopathic, or what would you consider it? Anything?
Well, first of all, when we're talking about war, we're already talking about a dynamic that normalizes the taking of human life. So if that's not psychopathic, there's nothing that is. It's impossible to defend war from a moral premise. I mean, I'm somebody who's not a pacifist, and I've been to war, and I would go to war again. But I'll tell you straight up, war is evil, and that's why I fight so hard to do everything possible to prevent a war, so we don't have to go to war, because I know what war does. I know what it's about. But if you're going to go to war, you need to win. If you're going to sacrifice human life, if you're going to do these horrible things, it has to be in a cause worthy of the sacrifice. And from Hamas's perspective, getting a Palestinian state is worthy of that sacrifice. Now, you say, is it sick to talk about 30,000 dead or 40,000 dead? I'll take you back in time. 1944, Charles de Gaulle, the head of the Free French, was approached by Dwight D. Eisenhower and the Allied leadership saying, we're going in to Normandy. We're beginning the invasion of France. To liberate Normandy, we will probably kill 80 to 120,000 French civilians. They were letting de Gaulle know that. And de Gaulle signed off on that operation. It turned out we only killed 60,000 French civilians to liberate Normandy. Charles de Gaulle never attended a D-Day anniversary celebration because it sickened him, because of what the sacrifice that he had to sign off on. He had to authorize the murder of 60,000 French civilians to begin the process of liberating France. But if you believe in freedom, if you believe that France needed to be liberated from the Nazis, then you had to be willing to undertake that sacrifice. From Hamas's standpoint, and the standpoint of many Palestinians, the deaths of these civilians are deaths that have to take place if you're going to have a Palestinian state, because otherwise those people would live as slaves under Israeli occupation. They had a choice to live as slaves or to sacrifice their lives to produce a Palestinian state. And now it looks like they're going to eventually get a Palestinian state.
So you think that's it's because I saw people who were Condoleezza Rice advisors going on MSNBC. Richard Haas, for F's sake, went on MSNBC and said we need to start sanctioning Israel. I mean, that's I would never have imagined that in my life. So they did lose the hearts and minds of the world, right? And months ago, there was an Israeli think tank that did a study of all the protests over Israel-Palestine conflict, and they concluded 95% of those protests were pro-Palestine. That was months ago. So it could only have gotten, it got worse. It got to the point where Condoleezza Rice advisors and Richard Haas are going on MSNBC saying we have to sanction Israel. I'm
predisposed, or I've always been predisposed, to just believe Israel.
What do you mean?
The whole time up until October 7th, if I think about it, it's always like, there's always some kind of reason why it's like, they probably have to do that. I don't want to know too many more details. We had Norman Finkelstein on. That was the first time somebody really explained what Gaza was to me, ever. Like, I've never understood what it was until he came on.
Right. And until this, I didn't understand anything about it either. I understood very little. I had covered it before. I'd covered some of the mowing the lawn, as they call it, and how they targeted
the calorie thing.
Yeah, the calorie thing. And so I knew that they were the occupiers, and they have a greater responsibility actually than the people they're occupying. So they lost. So you really think there's going to be a Palestinian state now because of what Benjamin Netanyahu, because of their overreach, because of what they did? You think there's going to be a Palestinian state?
I think there's a greater prospect for a Palestinian state today than there was on October 6th. And that's solely because of Hamas's actions and Israel's overreaction. Let's be honest. If Israel had gone in there and done what any normal military does, they would have probably killed 5,000 Palestinian civilians, and the world would have accepted that. It's just the way that Israel went about killing. You're familiar with Hind Rajab, the 6-year-old girl that was on the phone begging for help?
So go ahead and tell. Yes, I am. It's an unbelievably horrific story, especially when people say that the IDF, the Israeli soldiers, are the most moral military in the world. Tell this story, and this will disabuse you of that stupid idea.
On January 29th, the Israelis sent out a message to the Palestinian civilians living in Gaza City in the north that you have to leave. And so a family, the uncle, an aunt, their 3 children, and then 2 cousins, a 15-year-old cousin and 6-year-old Hind Rajab, got in their black Kia and started driving south on the route that the Israelis said you need to flee on. They got to a roundabout just south of Gaza City when they were fired on by an Israeli tank, killing the father, the mother, the 3 kids, and severely wounding Hind and her 15-year-old cousin. Now, before we get to the next step, I just want you to understand that Israel has a communications intelligence capability. They listen to every phone call made in Gaza. Every single phone call is listened to, not recorded and listened to later, but real-time intelligence. They have people sitting there listening to every phone call. So now 15-year-old cousin, Leyland, gets on the phone and calls her relatives and says, I'm hurt. Hind and I have been wounded. We're wounded bad. We're bleeding. Everybody else is dead. The Israelis are listening to this. They're listening to this phone call as she begs for help. They put her in touch with the Palestinian Red Crescent Society, and she tells them where they're at. They're trying to talk, and all of a sudden she says the tanks are coming, and you hear the machine gun fire rip through the car, rip through her body, and kill her while she's on the phone asking for help. Now the phone line goes dead. They think that's it. 30 minutes later, a 6-year-old girl's voice gets on the phone. Hind Rajab. I'm hurt, she says. Everybody's covered with blood. Please come and get me. Please come save me. She talks to people. They put her in touch with her mother. Mommy, I'm scared. Mommy, I'm scared. Come and save me, Mommy. 6-year-old girl. The Israelis are listening to this as the 6-year-old girl prays for help, begs for help. They then get her in touch with the Red Cross. The Red Cross is frantically contacting the Israelis saying, a mistake has been made, mistake has been made. We want to send in medics to rescue this 6-year-old girl who's begging for help. The Israelis say, okay. They give them a map and show the route they're on. The medics get in there, 2 very brave men, and drive this route. They're on the phone the whole time, coordinating. Hind is on the phone. They're saying, don't worry, Hind, help is coming. The guys are on the phone. We're 50 meters away, they say on the phone. 50 meters away, we see the car. We see her. But the Israelis are there. Green lights are dancing on our bodies. Those are the dots from the sights, laser sights, as the Israelis opened fire and killed the 2 medics. They lured the medics in using a 6-year-old girl as bait, and then they killed the 6-year-old girl. The most moral army in the world? No, these are pathetic, psychopathic murderers. They did it because they treat all Palestinians as human animals. That's the language that their prime minister uses, their minister of defense uses, their military uses. They slaughtered this innocent 6-year-old girl. They used her as bait to lure her in, 2 heroic medics, and they killed them too. And this happens every single day in Gaza. This is not an army worthy of the American people's support. These are the worst people in the world, and we fund them. We sit there, the hypocrisy of America, to drop 35,000 rations from an airplane using pallets that plummet to the ground and kill Palestinians on the ground, while at the same time we provide the Israelis with thousands of 2,000-pound bombs that they then turn around and blow up the civilians in Gaza. The Israelis lure the Palestinians in with food shipments. The hundreds of Palestinians come in, and then they drop a bomb on the food shipment to kill the Palestinians. It's genocide. It's criminal. It's happening. These are not good people. This is not the most moral army in the world.
No,
that Amalek thing, when they started calling them Amalek, the Bible story of the Amalekites, King Saul was commanded to kill, he was commanded to genocide them, even their animals, the men, women, children, the animals, and he got in trouble because he saved some of the women and animals for himself. That's why they're calling them that, so they can do stuff like that's why you can justify that. These are this is the Amalekites. Yep. That's how you justify it.
Oh, so they're using the Bible. That's how they use.
Those are the worst people. Those are people so bad. That's like worse than Sodom and Gomorrah.
Really?
Like, or as on par, I guess. Like that's. I think her name means like the blood lickers or something. But King Saul got in trouble for not killing all their livestock, even, and keeping some of it.
Really?
Yeah. God said you have to kill everything they just touched. You have to like wipe everything out. He didn't. It's before King David comes in. So,
but there's a corollary to that, because because even though King Agag, who was the king of the Amalekites, was saved by Saul, he took him to Samuel, and Samuel hacked him to death. But some of Agag's sons left. The seed of Amalek survived. Decades later, when the Israelis, the Israeli nation now are prisoners of Babylon, Esther, a Jewish princess, is queen. And Esther, one of the descendants of King Agag, the seed of Amalek, is now an advisor to the Babylonian king. And he's plotting to have all the Israelis who are in captivity killed. And instead, Esther turns the tables, gets the king drunk, gives her authority to kill all of this advisor and his men. 75,000 people were killed by the Jews, and they celebrate this every year in the celebration of Purim. Purim is a celebration of the completion of the genocide of the Amalekites. The seed of Amalek was slaughtered in Babylon, finishing the job. And this is why when Netanyahu says, "Remember Amalek," and the soldiers of Israel say, we will kill the seed of Amalek, they're celebrating the completion of the genocide of the Palestinian people. This is a sickness that goes beyond belief.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's heavy.
Yeah, those in my book of Bible stories when I was a kid.
Uh-huh.
And, it wasn't really framed that way in my childhood Bible tapes I read to go to sleep at night.
So, I was just in Berlin, and talk about what a guilty conscience will do to a people. They couldn't support Israel's genocide. It's so funny. Whenever there's a genocide, they're on the wrong side of it, right? So they were for genociding the Jews at first, and so now because of that guilty conscience, they're for genociding the Palestinians.
The Bible's actually a popular book for a reason, because there's some great stuff in there to justify whatever the hell you want to do. That's how we got our great nation. And like all these wacky theories of what tribe of what the natives here came from. All that bullshit's the same. Everybody uses it as, it's like war propaganda. It's been recycled over and over again.
So just this is this your Substack? Is that where this is?
Yes, that's my Substack.
So this is your Substack. We've explained it pretty good. Everybody should check this out. So you say this is going to go down in history as one of the greatest victories of this century. It's a pretty young. So,
the reversal of deterrence supremacy, understanding that Israel's entire posture vis-a-vis the world is based upon Israeli deterrence supremacy, and Israel's been living this for some time. People were afraid to attack Israel because of the consequences that would accrue. Iran, in this attack, without killing any civilians, without doing horrific damage, without exposing itself to follow-on actions, reversed that, and Iran emerged from this with deterrence supremacy of their own. This is one of the greatest. If this was a wrestling match, this would be one of the most awesome reversals that ever occurred in wrestling history.
Come see us on tour. We're going to be in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, Cortland, New York, Oakmont, Pennsylvania, El Paso, Texas, San Antonio, Texas, Vancouver, British Columbia. First show sold out. Denver, Colorado, Ashland, Virginia, Athens, Georgia, and Minneapolis. We're coming back to Minneapolis. If you couldn't get tickets last time, there'll be some available this time. We're doing 2 shows. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets.